Minnesota Original is made possible by the State Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
On this edition of Minnesota Original, award-winning public artist and arts educator Kinji Akagawa shares the stories behind 3 of his sculptural constructions. The Cottman family pools together their talents in photography, poetry, storytelling, and dance for a project called Surface Tensions. Bryan Holland's layered paintings are inspired by vintage billboards and graphic design. Influenced by soul, R&B, and disco, femme-fronted Southside Desire performs in TPT's Studio A. These artists and more, now on Minnesota Original.
Idea of temporalness is a very real and important one. We have to accept the kind of temporalness also within art area. Our experience is the most important part, not the material of permanentness.
Kinji Akagawa is an artist who's been living here in the Twin Cities since the 1960s, and he's really one of the most important artists that we have here from Minnesota. An incredible sculptor, maker of public spaces, but also he's taught at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design for 40 years.
This sculpture garden is one of the first piece I have made about 25 years ago. Late 80s, Martin Friedman, then the director of Walker, he said, well, Kinji, you want to make some bench and then meet a few group of people, and the incredible, wonderful, world-famous artists coming in, and me, the tiniest one from local stuff. And then just to make this, I thought, yeah, bench idea, it should be not just a physical rest, but intellectually, emotionally, people are going to encounter incredible diverse work here. And then I thought, well, then I should have a local material.
Kinji's piece is really one of the most beloved pieces in the Minneapolis Sculpture Garden. Anytime you walk through the garden, you'll see someone lying down on it or resting on it. What's lovely about it, I think, is that it integrates so beautifully into the natural landscape because it uses materials that are local.
This is a field stone. Indeed, farmers, Minnesota farmers, they hate stones, right, in the field. So this is from Stillwater area I got. And this one you may be very much familiar with, Taylor's Falls, that basalt, you know. And then this granite is a polished one. So it's a 3 different kind of environment coming from that. And then I was hoping that people will feel very, at homeness of the piece rather than a strange one. Seating, it's again a physical body sitting. And then with the ages and then our decay, I think again sense of life it gives, not permanent life, but this is part of our dwelling. And the bird pooped, and the bird has been invited also to play around or sit around here. So.
And she's always open that nature and humanity may overtake, and that's okay. His generosity allows that to be a part of his practice.
About 25 years ago, our office got a call from the park board and said that we got a gift from our sister city, Nagasaki, and wondered if you could design a park around it. What the gift was one balustrade from ground zero can you do a park? So if it came from a bridge, the initial thought it needed to have a bridge. And so after 25 years of weathering and it had worn out, we got a call from the park board again and said, could you replace it? And I said, are you interested in expanding the collaboration? And they said, sure. So my friend and colleague forever is Kinji.
Collaboration is the most important part.
And you brought another level of collaboration because you brought the students into it.
That's right, yeah. Students came and then we laid the stones together. And then it's a wonderful assistance from MCAD students, as well as volunteers of this Peace Bridge group. Community-based art, it's quite different from history-based art. It's to produce this one, the process, integrity in the process it has to have. It's not the end product of bridge, but the process of making the bridge makes community also.
Okay, I remember that Heinrich had told us about the zigzag bridge, which meant that evil spirits only traveled in straight lines. Of course, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know.
This bending, not only the kind of evil spirits cannot travel straight and then they'll drop off into the water, but the idea of this yatsuhashi, its design is kind of playfulness from one point to the other. I love the site, and then within this very quiet, wonderful, environment, right in the city.
I think a lot of people don't realize that this has now been declared an international peace site. Congratulations.
We are at the Normandale Community College. The site is in between Japanese garden, so-called, and the new building. I think there's no way I can merge the two aesthetics together. So what I went through is the educational institution going through the kind of backdoor entry to much more significant location activities. So activity here is to create a gathering space, first of all, so students can use any kind of outdoor classroom as such. Pergola is, again, I don't have the vegetable growing here or vines, but this is another 10 years, 20 years. Hopefully vines will grow, and then it will start to give a shade.
As we looked at the various candidates that were considered, we felt that Kinji brought to the table an aesthetic and a sensitivity to the garden that made it possible for us to connect this building and the garden.
It's kind of an idea here. It's from pointing, this gradual up is when you come to the school, you are pretty much alone, and in between space, there's a pillar. One coming in and then broadening one's own kind of idea of education and enter to the school. When you get out, it's to, again, become independent and then go into the society. So this idea of passage, becoming something, being something.
I like the design that Kinji presented. It tends to reach out, but it also tends to pull you in. And I like that. I think that is a very welcoming piece.
By giving this circle right in the center, and then even maybe they can do some dancing here too. So that's my idea. Here you go. Japanese dance. Here, Sky. Thank you very much. There you go.
I call my work social landscape because I reached a point where I'm less concerned about whether or not it is art than whether it has qualities and characteristics of the narrative threads that make up my life. I'm trying to create visual evidence of having been here. Visualizing non-buoyant objects floating is seeing people living courageously while suffering the symptoms of selective invisibility, freedom, identity, responsibility. These are human conditions that allow us to float. My family. Well, I'm a photographer, and Beverly is the storyteller, and Kenna is a dancer, choreographer.
I just grew up with a great childhood and surrounded by art, and I remember my dad would have a dark room, and there was a time that I got to see the photos develop. My mom would be in plays, and we would go to rehearsal. So yeah, it was just a part of life. I just thought that that's what you do.
Art is an integral part of our family, and not art like with a capital A kind of thing. It's just part of who we are.
My career was not photography. My career was engineering, and photography has been my creative outlet. It grew from being what I fondly call camera club photography, where you're very conscious of the rules of composition and what not to do, to being a means of personal expression where I'm more interested in what I'm trying to say rather than how I'm trying to do it.
Bill calls himself a photographer of social landscape. And for a long time, I thought, what exactly does that mean? He's taking pictures of things. But when you look at the images that he produces, they have various layers. And I've learned over time to see some of the layers.
The engineer and the artist in this creative tension in me, I'm most satisfied when there is balance between the two personas. And the engineer has enough about how, and the artist has enough about why, and then we can proceed forward on some visual theme. So that was sort of the impetus behind surface tensions. Surface tensions is the physical property of the surface of a liquid that allows a non-buoyant object to float if you place it carefully on the surface. And that idea carries over to me of navigating my way through life. Surface tensions as a project, one of the motivations was my discovery of the fact that Richard Wright wrote haiku later in life, and he used photography as a means of illustrating the haiku that he wrote. I said, okay, I'm going to try to write haiku. And then I discovered, oops, haiku is supposed to be about nature. Your stuff's not about nature. You can't call it haiku. I said, okay, I'll call it 17s, because that's the sum of all the syllables in the 3 lines of 5, 7, 5. So I call them 17s. The haiku things became about me, like the photography, and about the family, and about situations.
And he's taking images, some of which I'm very familiar with, those like that have his reflection in them, or those that have his feet in them. And he's putting them all together. And then it turned into a book. And then I kind of thought it was done. But I guess in the back of his mind, this idea was, yes, he intended it to be a performance piece.
Page 10. A colorful life imagined in black and white layers of stories, true and fictitious, delivered in prose and verse to amuse and teach. Surface tensions as a performance came from the content of the book. Stories from the past, allusions to the present, and disturbances forming the future. So clearly Beverly was always the storyteller.
You caught the sun and shared it with us for a time. And now your jewel-decked ship with sails of silk floats in and out of our dreams.
I was always the allusion to the present, and Kenna was always the disturbance forming the future.
Standing tall and looking forward in the direction of where we came.
I was fortunate enough to be selected to receive a State Arts Board Artist Initiative grant, and that funded the performance of Surface Tensions.
Okay.
Wait, he's got it.
Start the images, and Beverly leads us off.
The performance was a collaboration that was designed by my father, but performed by all of us in the family.
The process of collaboration comes easy because creating work and performing work together is another example of how we live together. The last scene is a new beginning. The performance ended with the idea that the path you are making is behind you. The path behind me is mine.
My path is behind me.
The path behind me is mine.
Is the one behind me.
Anytime you can see a path, you're looking at someone else's path. You've got to make a conscious effort to look at your own path. It's a way of expressing the importance of knowing where you've come from and bringing with you all you have, because that's what makes you who you are in the present.
Keep your eyes on the prize.
The lesson was learned. Everybody was happy.
Samba bayane.
There's something about painting that I find to be very magical, almost alchemical. This idea of taking some base material or raw material like oil paint and mixing it up and putting it on a support on a canvas and transforming this into an image, into a bird, into an animal or a person. It's just, there's something that's really fascinating about that. I do find it a little bit difficult to describe my work because it does not fit into what most people's preconception of things are. You know, it's not a landscape, it's not just a painting of an animal or a person. So I usually will describe myself as a painter. I use oil paint and mixed media. There's collage elements, there's people, there's elements of realism, but there's also elements of, you know, these other things that sort of intrude into the picture. There's something about animals, I think, that intrigued me. Sometimes I think, in some respects, they're kind of a stand-in for, say, people or for myself. I don't know that I can say that in every painting, but there is some connection, I think, probably that I feel anyway, with the animals, and I think it's, you know, to a certain respect, it resonates with other people as well. This is a painting of a Harris hawk. It was a photo that I had taken at the Minnesota State Fair. I like to work with my own photos when I can. I have a computer screen that I'll work from. Usually I'll, you know, pull the image up that I'm working from. I find that works a lot easier than trying to print out something on a piece of paper. Primarily I work with oil paints. Also I'll use some mineral spirits to kind of thin the paint down. I get kind of I get a lot of people asking me if it's watercolor from time to time, but I kind of like that ability of oil paint to have kind of that, you know, nature of being more opaque and then also kind of thin and transparent. The materials that I use for the collage are just a lot of different things that I've accumulated over the years, like maps, tissue paper, prints that I print out myself, templates that I'll use and use spray paint. Almost any manner of paper that I've found, I've probably tried at some time or another. A lot of times I've been asked by people like, well, why don't you do that first instead of putting it on after you started painting? And it has to do with just kind of getting a feeling for the painting, and once I've got something started, it's easier for me to kind of see what type of elements that I actually want to put in. The decision of where to put elements, I don't know, it's kind of one of those things where I'll just try it. Sometimes if I'm doing collage, I can actually take something and put it down and kind of move it around and see what I think. Sometimes it's putting it down and yeah, it works, no it doesn't, paint over it, you know, so it's an organic process. One of the ways that I work is I have probably like anywhere from 5 to 10 paintings that I'm working on at, you know, any given time. And I find that actually works pretty well because then I don't have to wait for a layer of oil paint to dry before I'm, you know, ready to finish it. And a lot of times one idea that I'm working on one painting, you know, will lend itself or cross-pollinate itself to another painting. So I find it really refreshing to be able to work on, you know, several paintings at one time. A couple of years ago, I started doing some work that was really influenced, I think, by seeing these old weathered billboards. And I found it really fascinating to see a billboard where, you know, you've got several layers that have been peeling, and so you've got like this top layer that's an ad for one thing, and then there's some bottom layer poking through. I think some of that idea is still, you know, perhaps influencing me. And it's something that's kind of interesting because you've got this new meaning that's sort of created, or these new ideas perhaps that are coming through the incorporation of type. And like when I include type, I usually fragment it, and I think that's part of that idea. I'm trying to not make something that's necessarily readable, but to evoke some kind of an emotion or feeling, or, you know, that fragmented nature. The thing with incorporating text or flat things, but particularly text in a painting, is that we have a left brain and a right brain, and we use our right brain to look at images and see, you know, pictures around us, and then we use our left brain to read text. And so it's almost like you have to use one part of your brain to see one part of the painting and another part of the brain to see the image. With the collage process, I mean, there's a certain amount of chance and risk that's involved, and so, you know, sometimes things work out and sometimes not. When they work out, sometimes you get something maybe that's even better than you're expecting, or accidents happen, and, you know, sometimes those accidents are really cool. I feel very fortunate to be able to come into a studio space and to just open up a tube of oil paint and start painting. I mean, you know, just the process of being in the studio, you know, kind of losing oneself, finding oneself at the same time, you know, it's great.
It's been a long time since we settled down and found that we were meant to be. Bouquets and kisses rule the days, but now they fall in and they stray from me to the nearest sea. And when I follow them, I see what I've become. I used to be your queen, now I'm just your party girl. And we spend our nights the quickest way. Our lines will do, not a word to say, but life was good. And we never were this mean when I was your queen, when I was your queen. Repeats itself day in, day out, no matter what I do, what I do. We pick a place to drink, a point to fight, and then I end up chasing you to the after show, where we stay all night, spend all our cash getting home. I used to be your queen, now I'm just your party girl, and we spend our nights the quickest way. Our lines are through, not a word to say, but life was good. Never were this mean when I was your queen, when I was your queen. It's not the vanity that I crave, it's not the sweetness I have known, but I desire a simple thing. I wanna see you smile again. I know that you can make it right. It's a life of love to bring. Maybe so we're up and be my history, the things we've lost, and what we used to be. I used to be your queen, now I'm just your party girl. And we spend our nights the quickest way. The lines are blue, not a word to say, but life was good. And we never were this mean when I was your queen, when I was yours. Used to be your queen, now I'm just your party girl. And we spend our nights the quickest way. The lines are blue, not a word to say, but the time was good. And we never were this mean when I was your queen. I was your queen. We are a new girl group soul band. I guess we do a version of like 60s style R&B. I write very, very personal songs. I'm really kind of a heart on your sleeve kind of a writer, and some of them are very much about my family and my life upbringing. Don't it seem it's been forever? Don't It Seem is actually about my first boyfriend ever. And it's really amazing how you can still find inspiration from something that old, but it's a song I started writing with Gloria, one of the backup singers. We wrote it together when I think I was 16, and this is actually a kind of a revised, amped up version of it that we wrote for this band. Baby, why don't you know me better?
Minnesota Original is made possible by the State Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.